Just want to welcome everybody who's joined us for the webinar on landmarks. So glad you could be with us, and we're just going to get started. So I've logged into our portal. This is our demo portal, which does have live vehicles in it as well. So that's what we're going to walk through here. And the first thing we just want to maybe touch on is what a landmark actually is. So basically a landmark, I like to explain it as giving a name to a specific address. And there's lots of ways that can help us within the system. And the beautiful thing is that I can enter a landmark today, create a new landmark, and then I can pull historical data on that landmark. So I can give that address a name today and then find out, for example, who was at that landmark 4 months ago. So that's a really nice feature that we're able to use as well. So basically, a landmark is giving a name to an existing address. And the first thing I'd like to cover is just how we actually create them. So we are going to go into the Administration tab, and we're going to go into Landmarks on the left-hand side here. Now, if when you click on Administration, these options on the left-hand side are not available and all you see is your name, then you do not have the permissions within your company to create the landmarks, but you'll still be able to use them and pull them. So once we're in the landmarks, in order to create a new landmark, we would just click on Add. This is how we can add one individually. Okay, so we click on Add, we choose a category for it, and I'm going to cover categories in just a moment. And then we're going to give the landmark a name. So let's just put Nero Office, Port Moody. So we're going to put the address in there. You can see that there are certain fields that have this red star. Those are your mandatory fields, so I don't need to have the postal code. If I have it, I can put it in there. So we put the address in, and we can determine the radius. So basically what the radius is telling us is that any vehicle parked at 130 Bruce Street or within 200 meters of it will register at this landmark. So I click Next, or we do also have the opportunity to enter this as latitude and longitude. So there's a way to find that when you're on a map view by looking at our map. When we choose the view address on the bottom here, anywhere I click on that map is going to give me the address and the latitude and longitude as it needs to read in the system. So we use MapQuest as our maps. So sometimes MapQuest and Google are not exactly the same. So you may find it under a certain street name in Google, but you need to know what it's called in MapQuest in order for it to show up in the right spot. So just minimize that. And you can see I could enter it as latitude and longitude if I wanted. So I'm going to enter this as our address. I'm going to click on Next. That's going to put it on the map for me. Now, as I said, MapQuest doesn't even line up exactly 100% all of the time. So your building could show at a wrong location. The actual building could be a little farther down the street, in which case, again, I can click my view address, click on that, and I have the ability to go back and enter that landmark with the correct address or by latitude and longitude, so that when my vehicles are actually parked at that landmark, they show up. But this is actually pretty much where our building is. And then I save it, and it creates a new landmark for me. I also have the ability to, instead of adding them one by one, because you can see we have 832 landmarks. I've got companies with more than 2,000 landmarks. have the ability to upload a lot of landmarks. So rather than individually entering them, we have the ability to import them with a spreadsheet. So the file has to be in CSV or text, and this little question mark here gives you a sample of how to actually add them. And what I've done is I've got sort of a template that I can always fire out to somebody that makes it really clear, and you can just enter all that information, get rid of the heading, and save it as CSV or text, and then upload that spreadsheet. So anybody who needs help with that, not everybody has in their office someone who's an expert in Excel or even really experienced in Excel, so I'm more than willing to help anybody who needs help with that. And I can also send that spreadsheet if you let me know. You can fire me an email afterwards or give me a call at the office. So in order to upload it, I would just click Browse, I would find the file, and then I would import it. When I import it, it's going to then enter them all, and it will spit out and tell me how many were actually entered and how many errors I might have had. And then I'm able to download a spreadsheet of my errors so that I can make the corrections and then actually re-import that file. Okay, so that's how we actually create them. So we create them either with a spreadsheet and import it, or we can add them individually. And I said I would cover the categories. You can see every landmark needs to be a part of a category. Now, with a new account, or if you've never entered landmarks or created new categories, you get just some generic heading categories, that are already preloaded into there. So there's going to be company, customer, general, partner, prohibited, supplier. Those are the ones that come already, for you to use in the system. But as you can see, we have customers in Vancouver, customers Burnaby, Tuesday all-day deliveries. We have all sorts of, different categories that we've created. Simply by clicking under landmarks, there's one called categories, and I can add a new category. I create it and give it whatever name I want. Call it staff homes, whatever I wanted it to be. I can create, it's going to generically assign an icon, but I can choose. I've got hundreds to choose from. So it's just going to upload and show you what ones are there. So you can see warehouses, toll booths, parking lots, a park. So you've got, it doesn't have to use this little tree picture for a park. You can use them for anything, of course, and different sizes and colors so that you can, create landmarks any way that you would want with the icon to show on your map. You can say they're inactive if you're not going to use it for a while. Usually when you create them, you're going to make them active. And a category will be locked once landmarks are assigned to it. So if I just cancel this and go back and I look, I can see these showing as active. So I automatically know there are no landmarks in that category. Hence the little box here that comes up that I could actually go in and delete it because there's no landmarks in it. And there it's gone. So as you can see, we have 96 categories. You can put, again, I've never seen a limit of how many landmarks you could actually put in there. So now what I'd love to go over is just different ways that landmarks can be of an assistance to you when you're using this. So one of the first ways that we say that there's such a benefit is when you're reading reports. So if I pull a stop report, and if I select all my vehicles, and I say I want to pull for, say, this month, my stops, I can create my report, and it will be a fair amount of data here, so I'll just take a moment to pull up. But you can see anytime it's a vehicle's been stopped at a landmark, because this is my stop report. In bold in front of it, it gives the landmark and then the address. So I can scroll through here. Nero office, Port Moody. That's the one I just created, but I called all of February's, and there it is. Right? So I can quickly glance through and look at my reports. Now, once you get all your customers and suppliers and everything in there, when you're looking at a stop report, you know, once you get those landmarks all entered, you can quickly pull up one of your vehicles and just see, are there stops that they're making where there isn't a landmark that I need to check in and find out where my driver was that day? Because if I've got all my landmarks in, they should only be making stops at landmarks. Therefore, any stop that doesn't have a landmark, I would maybe need to do some investigation and find out where my driver was. Right? So that's just one way for ease of all of your reports. Anytime you're pulling a report, it's going to give you your landmarks in there in bold, which is, you know, such a help for reading those reports instead of trying to figure out, okay, 11623 Lady Street in Maple Ridge, like where the heck is that and why were they stopped there for so long? So that's one way. When we pull up a map, I've got a map view open, so let's show, I want to show all my vehicles here. Pull up my map with all my vehicles. When I click on them, you can see at the bottom here, landmark, Nero office, Port Moody. So easily identifying where my vehicles are. This one doesn't have a landmark. This one, this vehicle's at Tim Hortons 54. Right? This one I don't know. So easily able to tell, once again, just from your map, where your drivers are and if they're actually stopped at an actual landmark. So another way, I'm just going to minimize my map. So another way that they can be a real assistance is our landmark summary report. So you can see it shows when and for how long an item's been stopped at a specific landmark. So when I pull this, this is going to help me with things like my billing, comparing different vehicles. So Nero office, Port Moody. So I'm going to pull up my vehicles, select them all, and I want to know this week which of my vehicles have been stopped at this and for how long. So this is going to help me with my billing. When I need to bill for a specific customer site, I can tell how long the vehicles were there, how much time we've spent there, and how much to bill for. I also have the ability to compare, you know, drivers. So, you know, look and see, okay, if this driver was here 4 hours for delivery, how come this driver did it in 54 minutes? I can compare. Was there a difference because they were there on different days? Was there some delay for this driver? You know, it helps me to investigate further as to what's actually happening within my company. All right, so it's going to give me a summary at the top here. All the vehicles, there's a total number of stops were 6, total amount of stop time, average stop time, and then it breaks it down by vehicle. So this vehicle had 1 stop for 4 hours and 4 minutes. These vehicles didn't have any. This one had 1 for 54 minutes. And again, this one had 4 stops, total stop of 16 hours and 48 minutes, and the average stop 4 hours and 12 minutes. So all sorts of reasons you could use this report to help you out. It's a fantastic report. So another way that is a great way to get some assistance from landmarks is when you have your map view up. So things like route planning, for example, So I have the option to select specific landmarks. I can pull up to 25 at one time. So here I can choose from my categories. So I'm going to pull customers in Coquitlam, and there's less than 25, so I'm just going to select them all, and I'm going to show the landmarks. They're going to show up on my map with the icon that was chosen. So I'm going to use my zoom to rectangle button so that I can just look a little closer at this area. Why is it not working well? There we go. Okay, so here's my customers. So for example, if I knew I had 2 drivers that had to cover all of these customers today, I can quickly see which ones that it would make sense if one of them went to these 5 and one of them went to these 5, which are all together. Or maybe this one goes to the 6 and the other one goes to 4 because they're farther apart, as opposed to thinking, well, they're all in Coquitlam, and randomly selecting which driver goes to which. Also, I can do the route planning in I know which order to send them in, because I can plan the route for them as opposed to having them just randomly select and going from here over at Westpac to here over at Croche to here at TNC and then back out here, and then, you know, so it just helps me to see it on a map and be able to plan a route for my driver. And then for those of you who use the dispatch function, if I select and pull up my map by driver, select all my drivers, show selected, and then if I go here and show selected landmarks, I'll pull up the same one just for simplicity. Then when I'm on the driver view and I've got my map pulled up by my drivers, when I click now on this landmark, I have the ability to send jobs right here. So I can actually dispatch my drivers just by send job, choose my driver. When I'm done and sent that one, then I can send the next and send their route right from here and do it in order. And that's again by selecting my map by drivers. So those are just some of the ways that we can use landmarks to just really assist us. And again, as I said, you know, there's other ways that people use them and get help from them, but we've covered how to create them, how to set them up, and how they can help. So if you've got any questions, feel free to stay on the line and I'll take care of those.